At a young age, I was diagnosed with GAS, garlic ash syndrome. At that time, British scientists were looking for a cure, but there was no treatment for years. This widespread genetic disease affects 73% of the gym goers, and from that number, a shocking 128% of that are men suffering from it. One of the biggest symptoms is that your butt is so inverted that it can open a door to Narnia. But don't worry, I spent years trying to find a treatment, and with these 4 exercises you can get rid of the embarrassment you brought upon yourself and your family. And since the glutes benefit from all kind of things like stretch mediated hypertrophy, as in getting extra growth if we are training it at long muscle length, we will see an example for that. And they are also unique compared to other muscles because their highest force output is when they are contracted. But this only means one thing: one exercise is not going to get the job done. Not unless if you don't want a fully developed glutes of steel. Starting with one of the best squats. Hang on a minute, I said best, not mediocre. Yep, that's better. Smith machine squats. And you are probably wondering why. Think of this as a squats, just on steroids. It is stable and can help you with the depth, even if you're not flexible, and you don't have to worry about staying vertical, because that's the only line you can follow. So you have no choice but to stay vertical. And since you don't have to focus on all of these things, you can just focus on reaching close muscular failure. Opposed to a squat, I would say never attempt to go to failure because that would equal death. But in this case, you can get the safety pins up and then you can get really close, if not all the way to failure. Now you can also make the argument that yeah, for a regular squat, you can get the safety pins up as well. Yeah, you can. This will train your glutes at the lengthened position as long as you go a bit below 90 degrees. So that's going to be your aim. And if you go lower than that, it is going to involve your quads too. Now, in my humble opinion, you don't have to worry about biasing your quads or your glutes. When the weight is heavy, they are going to fail either way. So you just have to focus on progressing the exercise in a hypertrophy rep range, and in this case, I would say it's the 5 to 9. Or at least if you listen to me. And now we go to the opposite direction and train the glutes where they are the best at. The contraction with hip thrust. I get it, it looks girly, but exercises don't have identity nor attitude, so you will have to drop the bitching as well. Box height is not as important as people make it to be. It is more about being accustomed to that height. I spent my whole life using a smaller box than my knee height, but even if I go a bit higher than that, I can still completely lock out my hip, and that's the most important part of the exercise. And about the form, it is said that you will have to tuck your chin, but it doesn't mean that you will have to touch your chin to your upper chest. In some cases, because it is neutralizing your spine so much, you can't reach full hip extension just because of that. So in my opinion, the best position if you are just keeping it neutral. So that means that instead of this, you just keep it neutral. This exercise single-handedly changed my glute game. That came out wrong. Or the way how my glutes look like. But for that, you need to grind. It is not going to happen at 2 plates. So the same thing applies. Progress it in a hypertrophy rep range and see what happens to them. Romanian deadlift. You would probably think, isn't it the same as a squat? It is going to train the glutes at the lengthened position or at the more stretched position. So you are right. Partially. Believe it or not, any squatting motion is going to put pressure on the lower part of the glutes, even when they are stretched. And opposed to that, a Romanian deadlift is going to put pressure on the higher upper part of your glutes. So essentially, it is going to train the lengthened position. At least both exercises are going to do that, but one is going to put pressure on the lower division, while the other one on the upper one. The knee bend helps biasing your glutes over your hamstrings, and I still get people saying, oh, but I still get my hamstrings really sore after doing this exercise. Yeah, you see, biasing only means like you get 60% glutes, 40% hamstrings. You can never take out the prime mover from the exercise just because you hear the word biasing. Push your hip back, and once you can't push it back anymore, push it forward. And people experience lower back pain during this exercise, but that doesn't mean you are dying. The reason can be many things, from existing fatigue all the way to an actual injury. And I'm being honest with you, that's quite rare. So have a good bracing. Use lifting straps so you can take out your grip, and use a hypertrophy rep range and progress the way up. And in this case, I suggest to do 5 to 9 reps. And you also don't have to push it to failure. And a unilateral exercise. And this was a hard decision, even though the choice looks pretty obvious. So I did what everybody would do in my position, and went with the worst. Bulgarian split squats. I want to touch on a couple of things here. You can do it with one hand, and with the other hand you can hold on to something, and with this you can eliminate stability altogether. But the weight is going to be problematic. I can do Bulgarian split squat with 70 kg, but the dumbbells are only going up to 50 kg. Not to mention that dumbbell is really bulky. Even if I'm holding it either side of my body, it just doesn't fit. Not to mention, I would have to do 13 to 16 reps per leg, and that's a total of 26 to 32 reps. And at that time, it's your cardio that's going to fail. So you would probably need like 5+ minutes to recover in between sets. In the beginning, that's a pretty good option, but once you progress the weight up to 40 kg, in my opinion, you should sacrifice your stability and grab 2 dumbbells. And this way you can lower the reps to 5 to 9. Especially for this exercise, you can get way more out of it doing that. And you can take this exercise all the way to failure, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You fail and you collapse on the floor. Also, don't worry about biasing, as in pushing your knees forward to get more quads or keeping them back to get more glutes. As long as you go all the way down with your back leg touching the floor, it is going to be glutes. I can promise you, if you work the way up to an unbelievable weight for these exercises, you are never going to be ashamed of your backside. And when that is out of the way, you can easily focus on your biceps. Watching this video next. Like, subscribe, talk to you in the next one.